Hello guys and welcome back to the channel for another rocket launch. So let me just get fully prepared and let's have everybody arrive. How is everyone? I am just preparing, by the way. We should have Real Matt Money join us very, very soon, which is going to be very exciting because I haven't heard from him or not heard. Okay, so we spoke very little since he has moved to undisclosed European location, and I'm excited to speak with him. Okay, trying to find Rocket Labs live stream. So let me share the stream with you guys. Here we go. So let me see some of your comments. So Pascal, hello. NM King, hello. Oh, thank you for being a channel member. You are amazing. What makes the difference between red wine or whiskey? Is which one is good, which one is bad? Please let me know. Look who dragged in. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
How are you?
Pretty tired, to be honest with you. I'm fortunate to be working in Europe, but at the same time, that means I still have to be working in the Houston time zone as well. So it's definitely a privilege because I'm obviously working over here in Europe. So it's been fun, but at the same time, quite tired. Quite tired.
Yeah, I to be honest, I went to sleep like 1.5 hours ago. Had to set my alarm clock to make sure I don't miss the launch. So it's pretty late over here.
Yeah, I think the thing that's dragging me on is I'll leave the office after working normal office hours here, and then come home, and then within an hour, I get meetings to do in Houston time. So I've been getting messages all through the night, and I'm answering them. And so anyway, it's a privilege, right? It's a good thing. It means I'm busy. It means I have a job. It means I'm doing good work. So that's all that matters.
That's awesome. I've been missing you from Rocket Lab Weekly, and I really like also Cashflow Chronicles, which has I guess it's also coming back once you're.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I get a lot of good messages, so I appreciate everybody reaching out. For those that have reached out, and appreciate the message that Chris and I pushed across. But unfortunately, it's kind of unfeasible, right? Because it would be 3 a.m. local time if we were to kind of do it, and Chris works overnight, so in the States, so it would have to be sort of while I'm sleeping, if that makes sense, or normal sleeping time. So unfortunately, it just hasn't been able to. We haven't been able to make it work. So just happy that we have something like this, which is still like 11 o'clock ish at night here, UK time, or undisclosed European location time, I should rather say. So
What you just said stands for unknown.
yes, unknown time,
Yeah.
unknown European location time. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And how have you been dealing with the Rocket Lab's share price? It's been not pretty, to say the least.
Been here before, right? I mean,
You've ridden
not
this donkey.
not necessarily for Rocket Lab, but just in general. Stocks go up, they go down. And specifically, if you're investing in companies like this, it's something where you have to have a little bit of hopium, I guess is the word, right? But the problem is distinguishing the difference between hopium and actual reality, because there can be companies where you know they undergo something similar with respect to stress to the stock price, etc. But the actual fundamentals of the organization are continue to deteriorate. And so if you think about it in that perspective, cadence is going up for Rocket Lab. You have continued um, continued contracts that are being issued, future contracts that are coming down the pipeline, a second profit stream or like new revenue stream that's going to be coming online towards the end of the year. So there's a lot of things going in terms of the company up and to the right. But unfortunately, just because of where it is within that sort of cycle of business and delivery, has yet to really be realized. And so I feel like a lot of people, specifically for Rocket Lab, they might be looking at it and be like, oh, the company's falling apart. But if you look at it, it's really the other competitors that are truly falling apart, losing contracts or closing up shop or divesting assets or completely going bankrupt in its entirety. But really, Rocket Lab's in a pretty strong fundamental place. I think there's been a lot of financial movements over the last 2 quarters. And so I'm really curious to see when we end 1Q and we get the results of the first week of May, really where we are in terms of a financial cash position. Because I think a lot of people are sitting here thinking, Rocket Lab's burning cash, they're hemorrhaging cash, but really they're at a place where, the amount of cash that they're burning is shrinking on a quarter by quarter basis. And towards the end of the year, once you get Neutron up and running, is really going to come to a pretty significant decrease in capital spend. So I'm really intrigued to see, what the next sort of 9 months looks like from a cash burn perspective, and what potentially looks like going into 2025. And I think what I'm very confident in saying, I don't know for certain, but I feel very confident saying this, is that the cash flow inside the company is going to make a very drastic step change. And once that happens, the stock could be $3, it could be 4, it could be 5, I don't know. But once that does happen, I feel like you'll see a very drastic step change in the stock price itself, probably an immediate sort of 60 to 70% or doubling potentially of the stock price. And then eventually you'll probably never be able to buy in at these prices again. But that's just me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree 100%. I feel like the market is lumping Rocket Lab together with unprofitable, and I mean it is unprofitable, but not being able to be profitable space specs. And yeah, the stream is starting. You guys, is the sound and volume okay? Could you guys please confirm in the comments? So yeah, I think that there's a lot of algorithmic trading on the stock, and then it's being grouped together with things that maybe it shouldn't be grouped together with. So at least for the bulls, there was a very extended, quite unbelievable discount, which unfortunately I couldn't take advantage of because I didn't have money left. But I saw a lot of people were buying.
Yeah, I haven't been able to purchase as much as I'd say but I've definitely taken advantage of selling puts in the $4 range rather than the 5.
Good morning from Rocket Lab Launch Complex 1, where our Electron rocket is vertical and ready on the pad as we begin the countdown to today's launch. Thanks for joining us for our 47th launch and our 5th mission of the year, scheduled for liftoff at 10:14 local time or 22:14 UTC. In America, that is 1814 Eastern and 1514 Pacific. Today, we are launching 2 satellites for 2 customers on a mission we have called Beginning of the Swarm, or BTS for our K-pop fans. The primary payload onboard Electron is the NeonSat-1 for the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, otherwise called KAIST. And sharing the ride is the Advanced Composite Solar Sail System for NASA. My name is Muriel Baker, Communications Manager for Rocket Lab.
And I'm Kim Thompson, Structural Analyst for Neutron. I'm thrilled to be joining you for today's launch from LC-1. We have a bit of an unusual flight path today for this mission. While Raichu missions on other rockets will deliver its entire payload to just 1 orbit, the 2 satellites on Electron are heading to 2 completely different orbits to each other that are also equal distance apart. NeonSat-1 is first up for payload deployment to 520 kilometers before NASA's payload heads all the way up to 1,000 kilometers in altitude. Our capability to meet the orbital requirements for 2 very different missions comes down to Electron's 3rd stage, or what we call the kick stage. Once Electron reaches space and separates the kick stage with the satellites attached to it, it's over to this rocket within a rocket to carry on the mission to those 2 orbits.
The first time we light Curie, it will be a circularization burn into a 520 by 520 kilometer orbit. Now, once that burn is complete and NeonSat-1 is deployed, the engine will light up again to increase its altitude to 1,000 kilometers. This highest position on an orbital path is called the apogee, and to be in a circular orbit, both the apogee and its lowest point, called the perigee, need to be the same distance above Earth. Though the kick stage's apogee will have risen, its perigee will still be set at 520 kilometers. So the stage will need to light its engine again for a 3rd time to circularize at 1,000 kilometers ahead of deploying NASA's Advanced Composite Solar Sail System payload.
Once that's done, the ride's not over. The kick stage will ignite its Curie engine again for a 4th and final time to perform an orbit lowering maneuver and bring the kick stage closer to Earth. We do this to help speed up the stage's eventual deorbit, all in support of a more sustainable space environment and limiting space junk where we can. We've completed similar orbit raises, inclination changes, and orbit lowerings across other Electron missions before. Most recently, we went all the way back down to Earth with our successful spacecraft re-entry for VADA in February this year.
Now, some of you may have picked up on the fact that Electron is sporting the usual red and silver coloring of a mission marked for recovery. However, today is not a surprise recovery mission. We just regularly manufacture recovery-ready boosters in the Electron production line, and it just so happened that this booster lined up with this mission. Now on to the satellites on board Electron today. The primary payload on today's mission is NeonSat-1, an Earth observation satellite that is part of a joint program from South Korea. Led by the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, NeonSat's primary mission is focused on the Korean Peninsula and its maritime areas, and it will pair the satellite's data with artificial intelligence to monitor for natural disasters. Other organizations involved with NeonSat include the Satellite Technology Research Center at KAIST, the SatRec Initiative, which manufactured NeonSat, and the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, which is managing the mission's ground segments and technology supervision for the NeonSat program. NeonSat is funded by the Korean government's Ministry of Science and ICT. And here's an animation of the NeonSat mission.
It's scanning North Korea as well.
A very exciting time for the Ministry of Science and ICT in Korea.
Cool. This is a very complicated launch, and I'm quite nervous about it. So it's different to watch a rocket launch when you're a shareholder, and especially when it's such a complicated one. It's one rocket, 2 different orbits, lots of burns, and a lot of things that can go wrong. But do you ever get nervous still about launchings?
I was nervous the first launch post the September 2023 anomaly, but most of the time I can kind of keep my nerves calm. The thing that always kind of bugs me is when the second stage kicks, not because of the anomaly in September, but because when you initially see it, you'll see the spark and the ignition of like the second stage, but then it takes a second to actually see the heat of the actual like cone actually start burning red, and so that always kind of freaks me out a little bit. Yeah.
I know what you mean. That's always also a heart attack for me. So what did you think that there was a neutron? What did she say? She was a neutron structural engineer.
T-minus 12 minutes and holding.
What did I feel about that? I'm not surprised. About
a quick
6
update
months.
from Mission Control there. The launch director has called a hold at T-minus 12 minutes while the team works a ground system issue. Now, the good news is we have some buffer in this window, so we can comfortably sit here while the team works through it. We'll stand by, though, for an update from the operators.
I'm not surprised that you're starting to see people with neutron titles, because 6 months to a year ago, when I was doing some looking, or maybe towards the end of 2022, I was just looking around at various opportunities that were out in the space market, not for myself, but just in general, and kind of seeing what's going on. I saw a lot of postings and wallops specifically for folks around the neutron and getting prepared and ready for it. So it's glad to see some of those actual positions come to fruition and them actually start to get some camera time, because I assume over the next 12 to 24 months they're going to be more and more in the focus as time goes on.
Yeah. Cool. So we do have a hold. I don't know how long it's going to take. It sounds like it's a ground system issue, so nothing wrong with the rocket, at least. And it's kind of a very interesting time to put the rocket launch, because it's also Tesla earnings day, and I'm sure that a lot of people who are here are interested in that too. So Matt, what did you think? Do you have any open interest in Tesla?
No. And I'm still quite surprised that the stock is down 60% from all-time highs back in 2021. I think it's warranted. I think a lot of people, I'm not a bear on the company by any means. I've actually, can we turn down the music a little bit? So I'm not a bear on the company by any means, but the thing that kind of gets me a little bit is, people being so bullish about the stock and the valuation of the stock. And, just a prime example is like when Amit was walking through, say, like the energy production, it's like 4.1 gigawatts. Wow. It's like, that's not a lot of energy, right? Like to put it in perspective, and I actually tweeted about this, NextEra Energy, which has a 28 to 30 gigawatt portfolio, makes the same amount of energy that Tesla made in a quarter in about 8 minutes time. So if you think about it in that perspective, that's not a lot of energy, but I think people are really uneducated based off of the hype. And unfortunately, the margins continue to get squeezed on an operating margin basis over at Tesla. Now, it's not to say that they don't make great vehicles, not to say that they haven't altered the course of the automotive industry. They've definitely done so. But does that warrant them being, worth more than the next 6 to 10 largest car manufacturers combined? And I just don't think that that's warranted. People might say, there's the robot piece and stuff of the like. And, to me, I get that. There's that potential. But does that mean that it's worth, $600 billion? And I don't know if that's truly the answer. I would potentially consider, looking and entering a position if it got back down to the $100 range. But it's just kind of fearful, just knowing that the margins are continuing to kind of shrink, and they're continuing to lower the cost of what everyone assumed was going to be a couple $100, $500, $1,000 a month for self-driving, and here we are continuing to cut. People are saying there's going to be 10 million cars by 2030, 30% margins, and here we are. They might still get to 10 million cars. I can't fault them for that. But now they're getting into the single-digit margins. It's like, well, all that value that you kind of were holding for the company has kind of disappeared. And that's not to say it won't come back, right? Long term, they might have the robotics piece, they might have the the graphics card piece, the computing engine piece, the self-driving piece. But for now, it's hard to gauge the company's future worth right now when things are just turning into more of like a normal car company sort of margins. Anyway, that's my thoughts, and I know that you're a big Tesla bull, and so are many others. So I get dragged a lot, but I've been right. I've been wrong from 2018 to 2021. I was very wrong, but since then I've been very, very right in my kind of notion of where Tesla's been heading and the trajectory. But I don't think it's a bad thing to hold some of it, going into 2030. I just don't think that $150 to $200 a share is the right price to enter personally.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I am a Tesla bull, but I also sold basically my position just before I bought Rocket Lab, and that was exactly for the things that you are saying here, because I had a thesis that they were going to go to 10 million cars produced, and a very big margin on the cars. And then I listened to the conference call, and then I saw that, okay, I was wrong about the thesis, and then I just sold. And I got so much hate for it. That was like one of my so I know what you're going through. And people were questioning my sanity, and but that turned out to be the right decision. I sold at, what was it, 220, I think, and now we're down to 140. But I do think that it's becoming.
Just tuning in. We're currently sitting at T-minus 12 minutes in a hold while the team works through a ground system issue. While we wait for an updated T0, we are being treated to beautiful views of Electron on Pad B at Launch Complex 1 in New Zealand. In fact, it's such a clear day that you can spot the Wairau coastline in the background there.
Yeah. One sec, my son woke up, so I just put him back to bed, and I come.
Yeah, no
One sec.
worries. But yeah, I'm curious. I haven't not seen a lot of chit chat going on in the comments. What's going on with everybody else? How's everybody been? I haven't checked in, and damn, music's too loud. God damn it, Vince. Anyway, hopefully everyone's doing pretty well. Sure if there's any thoughts from the chat. Otherwise, I'll just complain about how tired I am.
Oh, I'm back, and I left you with the music too high on. Okay, now we go.
Nah, you're good. Yeah, I cursed you when you were gone. I was like, you left. Damn, music too loud. It's 11 o'clock where I'm at.
Yeah, here it's past midnight.
Yeah.
So we see.
Yeah,
we
just
see
this European location is right. Yeah, to me, when it comes to, it's kind of funny, right? Because you probably experienced this a little bit. I mean, I've experienced people hating on Palantir, Bitcoin, people thinking I'm stupid for investing in the S&P 500. So I don't care if people think I'm right or wrong, right? I've been right, I've been wrong before. I've got stocks wrong. I've, bought a lot of Wish that turned out to be pretty much worthless. So at the end of the day, I think it's pretty funny when people like to poke fun at me about buying stuff, because even if a lot of this goes to zero, I'll be okay. And I think a lot of people look at it like, oh, this guy's dumb. He's betting his net worth on X, Y, and Z. It's like, I'm kind of not. Like, when you think about it from a large perspective, I'm investing what's comfortable for me. And, a lot of the positions that I have are in pretty stable opportunities that won't go to zero. And so, when people are thinking like, Matt's dumb, he's trying to invest $100,000 into the Rocket Lab, it's like, it kind of is going to sound really dumb or sad, for some people to hear, but I think of it as like, I am willing to part with $100,000.
At the top left, the launch director has called a hold at T-minus 12 minutes while we work through a ground systems issue. Now, of course, if we do need to stand down from today's launch attempt, the good news is that we have plenty of backup opportunities in the coming days. So we'll keep listening into mission control, but keep our fingers crossed that we get to watch our 47th Electron lift off shortly.
So kind of going back to what I was saying with respect to, it's like, I've made a calculated bet to kind of acknowledge that, $100,000, or I think I'm up to like $65,000 or $70,000 invested thus far, is about how much I'd be willing to lose for an opportunity of, I would say, growing that $100,000 or so into $2.5 to potentially $5 million. And people can think I'm dumb for thinking something like that. It'll take time, but whether or not people believe I'm right or wrong doesn't really matter to me, because even if I am wrong and I lose $100,000, I still have, let's be frank, a 7-figure portfolio to still, lean on, and it is what it is, right? So.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because I must say that you are one of the most well diversified and most prepared for the market investor that I have known. It's just you're like very humble, so it doesn't come through straight away, But I remember when I maxed out my margin account with Rocket Lab, and then you were like, yeah, but this could happen and this could happen, and I was like, no fucking way, and and sure enough, exactly what you warned against. And so my respect level is very high.
Yeah, it's not about that. I think it's just about making sure that people, think about it. How do I say this? I think sometimes I do investing for a living at work, even more so now. And what the biggest problem that I think a lot of people will do, especially when they're investing money that's not theirs, is kind of throw uncertainties and risks out the window to an extent. Or they'll say, oh, but it's such a slim chance. It's like, but if you think about it, if this has a 1% chance of happening, this has a 2%, this has a 4%, this has a 5%, and they're all really outlandish outlier risks that have a severe impact to the potential profit of a potential project, then one of them is probably going to show up. Because yes, this one might be 1% chance of happening. This one might be a 4%. This one might be a 2%. But you start stacking the probabilities on top of each other, it's very likely that one of those things, if not more than one, will actually come to fruition. And so I think a lot of times people will toss something to the side because of its low probability. If you do that too much, that's when I think the value gets eroded in a lot of opportunities. And so you have to be willing to risk it, right? Like, I didn't think that Rocket Lab would go to the market and try to, get extra capital to kind of progress forward. But I was humbled by that. And, it's always a possibility, right? Like, any company can issue bonds or anything like that at any given point. And so, you have to realize that you don't know what you don't know, right? And what Rocket Lab was thinking at that time was, we have probably some of the best financial standing of any space company other than maybe SpaceX. This gives us a point of strength to actually be able to capture a couple $100 million worth of capital when other companies are not in the position to do that.
And it's so funny, when Rocket Lab did the raise, I was so pissed that they did it at such a low share price, and now I'm like, thank God they did it at those share prices and not now.
Yeah, I think, I've seen this play out a couple times now. Like, SoFi is a good example, Palantir is a good example. It's like right before you start to hit the pivot point, I think, is when the stock is at its worst. And I think it's because you have people that are in it, and you have people that have kind of been so drowned out by waiting for profitability that by the time profitability actually shows up, that's what the sentiment most of the time is, at its all-time low, because people have been waiting for so long for something. So I've seen it play out with SoFi. SoFi was maybe a different beast because it was a SPAC as well, but maybe that's the similarities that you can have between SoFi and Rocket Lab. Palantir direct listed, so there's that caveat associated with that. But I think it's a real opportunity. If you think about some of these companies that have eventually turned very profitable, SoFi is on its way there. Palantir is becoming a very profitable organization, will continue to grow its profitability per share. And I have a feeling that Rocket Lab will be the same. I think in 5 years' time, people will be eating their words, being like, it's going to go bankrupt, it's going to do X, Y, and Z.
11 minutes, 35 seconds and counting.
Oh, they started the clock again.
Oh, let's go.
Yep. Stage.
Stage is go.
The fun part.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
Econ.
Econ's go.
T1,
T1 is go.
GC,
GC's go.
PLS,
PLS is go.
RSO,
RSO is go.
MET,
MET is go.
RF,
Matt, your go.
Matt's a go.
RF is go.
MM,
MN is go.
LDSUP.
LDSUP is go.
We're currently T-minus 10 minutes and 50 seconds in counting. We go for the terminal count order sequence at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
Question while we're waiting. Have you ever read Christopher Meyer's I always forget the title. It's like
Okay, great. That was the go no-go poll completed there, and the team is cleared and ready to proceed with launch. Liftoff is now set for 10:32 a.m. local time, now in under 10 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, there's a secondary payload on this mission, deploying much higher, the Advanced Composite Solar Sail System for NASA. This mission is a test of solar sail technology, where a sail that's about the size of a small apartment will deploy from the CubeSat, which is about the size of a toaster. Solar sails use the power of sunlight for spacecraft propulsion, and the objective for this mission is to test how well solar sailing works with carbon fiber sail booms instead of traditional metal ones. It's the first test of this technology in space, and if it's successful, it could pave the way for future solar sail missions to use even larger sails to maximize spacecraft travel. Here's more on the mission from NASA.
A NASA mission is testing revolutionary technology to allow robotic spacecraft to sail on sunlight. The Advanced Composite Solar Sail System introduces a new way to explore the cosmos. Much like a sailboat is propelled by wind, a solar sail spacecraft is pushed by light from the sun. Sunlight is composed of particles called photons. As these particles bounce off the reflective sail, the spacecraft accelerates. This eliminates the need for rocket propellant and makes it possible for spacecraft to travel indefinitely. The sail is stored inside a spacecraft about the size of a microwave oven. Lightweight carbon fiber booms unroll from the spacecraft to form rigid tubes that support the ultra-thin reflective polymer sail. When fully deployed, the sail forms a square that is 33 by 33 feet, or about half the size of a tennis court. Altitude and position are changed by angling the sail toward or away from the sun. Results from the mission will guide the design of next-generation solar sail spacecraft to explore and conduct science across the solar system.
Science.
It's exciting to think that the technology tested on this mission could one day be in use for future NASA missions. Some of the potential use cases that could include solar sailing are space weather early warning satellites, asteroid and other reconnaissance spacecraft, and missions to observe the polar regions of the sun.
Check.
Hell yeah.
Sequence 57 complete.
Copy, thank you.
Isn't there a project, what is it, Moon Star Shot or something, where they're trying to send like robotic solar sail things to Alpha Centauri, the nearest star system?
I've heard something, but I don't remember.
I think it's like a crowd-funded philanthropic mission. It's just funny that they didn't say that potential use cases include that.
In under 7 minutes' time, the Electron rocket you see on your screen is scheduled to lift off from Pad B at Launch Complex 1 with KAIST and NASA's Payload. It's launching on a southern trajectory at a 97-degree inclination, first to a 520-kilometer orbit and then onto a 1,000-kilometer orbit.
Right now, the team is loading the rocket's liquid oxygen propellant into both Electron's first stage and second stage, having already completed kerosene propellant loading earlier in the countdown. you can see the white bands on the rocket there. That's where the liquid oxygen has caused moisture from the atmosphere on the outside of Electron to freeze. The propellant for the Curie engine within Electron's kick stage, which sits inside the rocket's nose cone, has already been loaded before the two fairing halves were closed to surround and protect the kick stage and its payloads through launch.
At the bottom of the rocket are 9 Rutherford engines, each of them 3D printed and electrically powered by batteries that drive their propellant pumps. Using electricity and batteries as a power source for those pumps cuts down on the weight and complexity that would have been added to the engines if the Rutherford had been designed to use a traditional gas turbine system. There is a 10th Rutherford engine that powers the second stage, and the main difference of this engine to the 9 on the first stage is the size of the nozzle, which is larger for the second stage version so that it can maximize performance when traveling through the vacuum of space. Otherwise, the 10th Rutherford uses the same batteries and 3D printed components as the first stage engines, including a 3D printed combustion chamber, injectors, pumps, and main propellant valves.
All right, as we look at the clock, we are 5 minutes and 10 seconds left in the countdown to liftoff. Launch operators are currently in control, but once they switch Electron to internal power at T-2 minutes, the rocket's flight computer will autonomously run through the remaining steps. These include the final propellant load of liquid oxygen at around T-1 minute 30 seconds. The call across the nets for that will be that the LOX system is in recirculation, which means that LOX loading is complete on Electron. 30 seconds later, operators will confirm that the rocket's first and second stages are fully pressurized for launch. Then it's through to T-10 seconds when our launch director will begin the countdown to liftoff. We're going to hand it over now to Mission Control to listen in on those calls.
Getting exciting.
Yeah. I was actually just noting, I mean, we did mention the 2 different payloads that are going to happen. I think the thing that's beneficial about this is if you're able to split the payloads, you know, generally the rocket per launch is about 8.5 million sales price. But I'm curious, if you say split it, will you get something closer
GCLD.
to like
ECS disable
5?
payload subsequences on payload for launch.
Copy, thank you.
We'll be able to get something like 5 million per customer, and so you'd actually be able to increase the value of the rocket based off of that. So instead of getting, say, 8.5 million sales price for one customer, you might be able to get 10 or 11 million if you split it between 2 customers. Because you're like, all right, well, you don't have enough to do one whole launch. We can give it to you at a discount, but you'd have to go with somebody else, and they might say, well, we'll give it to you for 5 million instead of 8.5. But you have to go with somebody else. Yeah. Also, I look tired because this does not have good lighting, right? I'm not in my normal setup studio that I kind of have.
To all operators, LD mission code. From now on, there should be no red
But
flags
I
on
am
your
also
Orbital
tired.
LCCs. Recon LD mission code.
LD Recon.
Lock the auto sequence and confirm.
Auto sequence is locked.
Recon, please confirm all expected primary flight computer ASCIIs are green.
Confirmed.
We go for auto sequence start at T-2 minutes. LDs go for launch.
Matt, if we make a lot of money on Rocket Lab, we should visit this site.
I'd be down. Yeah, I'd 100% be down. And at some point, I want to go visit Wallops. I know Christopher Blaine is always in the chat. He wants to meet up at some point. I'd be more than happy. Actually, I'll be in the area closing on the new Airbnb VRBO in like the May timeframe. So maybe I'll, if I have the ability and I'm mobile, take an extra couple days and maybe meet some of our fans and friends in the Virginia area.
Chico is fully on internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
Ooh, it's getting very close now.
Yeah, I definitely would go to New Zealand. Actually, one of our
LOX load complete. System is in recirculation.
one of our viewers, Kev Dog Millionaire, actually just was in New Zealand. Hopefully he doesn't mind me saying that. So sorry, Kevin, if you didn't want me to say that. But he was there recently, and he seemed to really enjoy it. So I know a lot of Kiwis. They're great people, great group of people. I'd love to visit.
Thank you guys for just a
same
second.
here. We are less than 1 minute away, people.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
High flow engine approach enabled.
That's why they call him Hot Kev. Yeah, one of these trips to undisclosed European location, I need to make it to go see hot vents.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I might come back in summer, but at least for now,
10,
guaranteed
9,
September.
8, 7,
Cool.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
This is gonna be exciting. I'm nervous. I love that comment. This one's cool, man. Two different kicks, 2 different orbits.
2 heart attacks.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
The beginning of the swarm has begun its ride to space with that clean Electron liftoff from LC-1. Electron's trajectory will take it up and over the South Pacific Ocean as it heads away from the launch pad. Our first mission milestone will be max Q, otherwise known as maximum aerodynamic pressure, which is the moment where Electron experiences the most amount of stress as it climbs through the atmosphere. We're coming up on that moment now and expecting to hear the call for max Q shortly.
H3 battery discharge nominal.
Clear next queue.
That is Electron clear through max Q, with the rocket now at 15 kilometers in altitude and moving at over 2,200 kilometers an hour.
Next up, Electron will perform 3 actions that are only seconds apart. The first is called MECO, or main engine cutoff, and this is when the 9 engines that you can see glowing at the bottom of the rocket there shut off in preparation for the second step, and that move is called out as stage separation, when the first stage of Electron separates from its second and falls back to Earth. Now, the third call out after separation should be second stage engine ignition, when the single vacuum optimized Rutherford engine fires up to maintain the mission's course to low Earth orbit. Now, those 3 events are approaching fast, so we'll bring up the audio channels from mission control now.
The
15
views
seconds to
are
staging.
Entered burnout detect mode.
New Zealand from space, people.
MECO confirmed.
Yeah, it makes me actually.
And the heart attack.
Stage 2 confirmed.
Stage separation.
All right. That gets me scared until you see the
Here we
orange.
go. That was MECO, stage separation and engine start on the second stage. We have had a nice clean camera feed of those things happening, with the camera view now held on the second stage engine as it powers the mission on. Beginning of the swarm is now over 100 kilometers above Earth, past the Kármán line, and moving at more than 8,000 kilometers an hour. The next mission milestone is fairing jettison, or separation of the nose cone, and that's what protects Neonsat 1.
As you just saw, fairing jettison is now complete. We dropped those 2 fairing halves early into the mission because they're not needed for satellite protection anymore now that we're through Earth's atmosphere. That dead weight is gone, and the mission is now a step closer to our first payload deployment at 520 kilometers.
Cool. So the thing that I'm always kind of curious about, because I'm an engineer, right, and I focus on pressures. And...
We have a couple of minutes to go until our next mission milestone, and that will be the battery hot swap on the second stage, currently expected to take place at the T plus 6 minutes 20 second mark. Right now, though, Electron's second stage is continuing along nicely to our target apogee of 520 kilometers for our first payload deployment for KAIST. This KAIST satellite is the first of up to 11 satellites planned by them, which will help to increase the program's observation rates of once every 2 to 3 days to 3 to 4 times daily.
That's pretty cool. 11. I wonder who's got those other contracts.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't been awarded yet. But going back to what I was saying, because I focus on a lot of pressures and temperatures and stuff like that. When they always talk about max Q, it always gets me thinking, like, because you're fighting two things, right? You're fighting...
It's T plus 4 minutes into the mission. Electron is still progressing smoothly through flight, and all remains healthy with KAIST and NASA's satellites. For NASA's payload, packed into this small satellite are composite booms that will unfurl once the payload is deployed, much like how a butterfly's wings emerge from its cocoon. This satellite will test how the pressure of sunlight pushing against its sails moves the satellite around. The closer to the sun, the better to test its solar sail technology, hence the reason for this mission requirement of a much higher orbit than the primary payload on Electron today.
Yeah, it always makes me think, because of, max Q, they're talking about the max pressure that's on the vehicle, right? So it's like two things. The higher you go up into the atmosphere, the thinner the air is, right? Because that's just how it works. And then if you think about it, you're also
throttling down.
You're also increasing
T plus 5 minutes, 32 seconds, and our launch operator's next call out will be for the battery hot swap. Our rocket engine's pump is battery powered, and since it's been flying for a while now, its power source is starting to run low. So to keep the engine and the mission going, Electron's engine power system swaps to a new battery pack for fresh and continuous energy supply to the electric pumps. The old set of batteries will be discarded, which you can sometimes see on the screen as it happens. So let's listen into mission control for that call.
So yeah, it's just kind of interesting how you hit max pressure on the vehicle kind of so low. It's only like 18 to 20 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And then everything after that's kind of like, and that's why the speed of it speeds up so fast, right? Because now it's at like 15,000 kilometers an hour.
Hot swap successful.
So.
And as confirmed by mission control, battery hot swap has been completed for the second stage Rutherford engine. Propulsion remains nominal, and the mission is continuing on its journey to that first payload deployment with KAIST and NEONSat-1. Now, of course, once NEONSat-1 is deployed, that is only the first of 2 satellites to be released on this mission. Electron is also carrying NASA's Advanced Composite Solar Sail System satellite that will be deployed at twice the altitude we're heading to now, from 520 kilometers above Earth to 1,000. To do that, we'll first need to repeat the stage separation process we completed earlier in the mission, this time separating Electron's third stage, or kick stage, from the second stage that's currently firing hot on your screen. That second engine cutoff milestone, which you'll hear called out at SECO, is expected at around 9 minutes into the mission.
I got a second heart attack, when they do this battery swap and you see like debris falling off the rocket and then they clap. So
It's just kind of crazy how fast this thing's going now. It's going close to 20,000 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. I think orbital speed is 26,000.
T plus 7 minutes, 47 seconds into the flight, and the mission is continuing nominally. If you take a glance over at the right of your screen, you'll see some telemetry from Electron's second stage, showing us that we have about 16% of propellant remaining. We're currently cruising along at a speed of over 21,000 kilometers an hour and approaching an altitude of almost 209.
We're coming up now to engine cutoff on the second stage, the last action this stage will perform for the mission. Much like with the first stage, Electron will power down the Rutherford engine on the second stage to allow the kick stage to separate cleanly. We time the engine shutdown for right as we reach that target perigee of 250 kilometers. Let's listen out for that engine shutdown and stage separation now.
Seeker confirmed.
Stage 3 separation confirmed.
A great call from Mission Control. The second stage engine has turned cold and the kick stage has separated, ready to begin the payload deployment process. Now, this mission, of course, is a little different to a regular Electron mission. So here's a reminder of how today's 2 deployments will work. Now that the kick stage has been released, it will now go into a phasing orbit of Earth. Because it's been set into an elliptical orbit from its perigee, it needs to head around to the other side of the planet to an apogee of 520 kilometers before it fires up the Curie engine to course correct into a circular orbit. Now, once it does, NeonSat-1 will be deployed to begin its mission for KAIST, and that will be phase 1 for the kick stage.
Phase 2 will see it light up its engine again to perform an apogee raise to 1,000 kilometers, the target altitude for NASA's satellite. That apogee raise will bring the kick stage out of a circular orbit and back into another elliptical one. Here, the kick stage will do another half pass of Earth before the dots reconnect again at 1,000 kilometers, where it will light up its Curie engine for a third time to circularize its orbit before payload deployment.
Once that's done, it will be on to phase 3. The Curie engine will ignite a fourth and final time to undo its circularization and bring it back into an elliptical orbit. This orbit lowering maneuver will help to speed up the kick stage's deorbit, doing our best to keep space as tidy as possible. For now, though, we will leave you with a graphic of Electron's coast phase ahead of that first Curie ignition, and we'll come back to this webcast to listen in for confirmation of that first payload deployment at around T plus 45 minutes. So we'll see you back here then.
So that's like 35 minutes from now. I think we're gonna watch that on Twitter.
Yeah, I think so. But I did have a question. How are your puts going along with the decrease in the price?
Well, you know that like I was put, like I had 2 puts, and I was put one set that put me up to 65,000 Rocket Lab shares, and then I ended up selling the second set of puts at a like $17,000 loss to basically prevent a margin call that I was very close, and it would have happened if I don't sell them. And I've been doing really well on my weekly option selling. So I'm positive on the options selling. So like I've made back this minus already, like on the option, but I'm negative because I was assigned 40,000 Rocket Lab shares at $5. So like I'm negative on that, but I'm trying to keep those shares and looking at different solutions on how to keep those shares.
Yeah, I think just don't get greedy, right? Because the stock can move in the opposite direction just as fast as it went down. So I just don't want you to say, I don't know what you're writing it on, if you're writing it all 65,000 or what, but my fear is, if you're doing that, then you could easily end up in a spot where, you lose all 65,000 shares because you might be getting too aggressive, right? So it works really well when the price is going down, but there's at some point going to be a reversal, and you might not lose money if you're writing it appropriately. I don't know what you're doing.
No, to be honest, actually, I've been not, because on Rocket Lab, like it's not liquid enough to, like I've been trying to sell calls, and since I have the shares, I haven't been able to sell calls. So I've been doing it mostly on Palantir on my position, like covered calls, and it's so interesting that as you always warn me that like this option thing is like its own universe, right? And like I never bother to check if you can do this wheel strategy on Rocket Lab, because like it's not liquid enough that you can roll your positions, and so it's basically like like the step zero, like if you're going to do a wheel on a stock, like can you even do this on a stock? Like I failed at that. Like that's how much of a rookie I was. But yeah, Palantir has been treating me very, very nicely, actually.
Yeah, Palantir is pretty good. It has pretty good liquidity when it comes to their options. It wasn't that way when it was at like the $6-7 range, but I think when you get into the $20 range, it helps a little bit. But hopefully, Rocket Lab will eventually get to the same place where liquidity picks up. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't give a lot of credit to that, because very often there's 20 cents between the bid and ask for many Rocket Lab contracts, and that's a difference of $20 a contract. So you're talking about 650 contracts. That's, you'd have to swing at that point.
Yeah, but it's like it's like my problem is not even the spread between the bid and the ask. It's just like the contracts don't go through. Like I was today was a huge green day, right? And I was like, okay, maybe I can sell like a week. No, like the weekly was impossible, but like a 10-day option at a $4 strike. And then the last price on the call was like 5 cents. And I was like, okay, I'll go at 3 cents, which is like, you're almost like, it's yeah. And the point is, the whole day, they just don't, like, there was not even trading on that. Like, it's not even that I put it too high. It was like zero traction. And if I would put it to 2 cents, the commission would almost eat, because I think that the commission that Interactive Broker takes was like $700, and then I was going to get like $1,000, so like 300 net, and I'm like, that's not worth to even take any risk,
Yeah, it's interesting. But all right, my man. Well, I was hoping for a little bit quicker of a turnaround on being able to see these payloads be deployed, but unfortunately it doesn't look so.
No, it's yeah, it's quite late, but I think we had an amazing launch. And by the way, it's so, like, we take it for granted as Rocket Lab shareholders, but there is only 2 space companies that have this many private launches this frequently, and that's SpaceX and Rocket Lab. And Firefly, for example, they have had, like I saw on Twitter, this post of like how much funding certain companies have gotten, and from that funding, how much launches they have done. And Rocket Lab is insanely capital efficient, and they have done many, many launches. And yeah, we shouldn't take this for granted. It's an amazing company.
Yeah. Don't know what the red circles are. Maybe communication zones. I don't know. I do not know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good way to think about it. I think comparatively to our private companies like Relativity and them, Rocket Lab is extremely undervalued. And if you're looking to just get involved in the space industry, period, yes, there's some de-risking, capital de-risking, etc., that can happen over the next 6 months. But I'm still very confident on my $15 price target by the end of 2025. I believe that I unwaver from that unless there's a drastic pushback in Neutron, which is possible. But I think within 12 months after Neutron's first launch, we'll see $15. So if that pushes to middle 2025, then I think middle 2026 you'll see $15. But and that's not even saying a lot, right? $15 would make it about a $7 billion company.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm wishing the moon here. Like down at the $3.50 range, we are close to a $1.2 billion company, I think.
Yeah. It's crazy
Sorry,
how low.
like almost a 1.5 billion. Sorry. So yeah, just kind of crazy to think about.
I remember what I wanted to ask you. So have you ever read the book by Christopher Myers, 100 Beggars?
No.
It's a very, very interesting. It's like a 5-hour listen on Audible if you're ever driving or flying or in the underground metro.
Yeah.
And basically it's like a case like there was a guy called something Fisher, and he did an original case study of stocks that went 0 to 100 and how you can spot them. And his case study was from like the 1930s to the 1970s. And then this Christopher Meyer, he's like he updated this study, from 60 to 2010. And they excluded like mining stocks and oil stocks and penny stocks that went from 0.5 penny to like $1, because it's not something that average investors can spot. And they promote very, very long-term investing. Like they're saying that the usual time for a stock to go 100x, it was like 23 years.
Oh wow.
And like they list out, it's super interesting, of like, for example, they listed Netflix, Amazon, and like what you had to hold through to arrive at the 100 bagger, because you would think that it's like it goes 20% every year, but no, it's like it goes crazy much up. And then sometimes like Netflix had an 80% fall in like 1 year, and Netflix, I think, was an 800 times return on your money, like if you bought at the right time. And what I wanted to say is that Rocket Lab, I believe, is one of these stocks, and they give you like what parameters you have to check where it's like likely that you would get. And it has to be founder operated, it has to be that they're able to grow into the decades, into a huge market, and they have to have a moat, and like it's just so many things. And in the book they said that the average market cap of 100 bagger, like when you should buy it was $500 million, and the average revenue per year was 170 million, like of the company, right? And I was like, wow, Rocket Lab is, because it's a study from like the 60s or 70s to 2010. So obviously we've had a lot of inflation, and I'm like, wow, Rocket Lab is still in that ballpark,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're going to be I think if we can hold through whatever BS we're going through now, we're going to be very happy. The future Matt Money and future Vince is bullish is going to be very happy with us.
It'll be ecstatic even with a 20x, but 100x, that would be pretty life changing.
Yeah, if we get a 10x, I'm not complaining, just so people understand. But yeah, I think we definitely have a 100x potential.
I actually would have to start to think, because I'm fairly confident this is a 20x stock for me. So I'd have to think, at what point do I take a little bit of profit? And at what points? I don't plan on taking a lot of profit for a long time. Just like Palantir, I have yet to take any profit. I just write covered calls. And maybe I'll realize, that the covered calls that I'm writing are sufficient enough, right? And because I write pretty conservative covered calls, so I'm okay with 0.5% or whatever month on whatever position it is. So maybe think about it, ends up being $100,000 position or $200,000 position. I'm okay generating $500 to $1,000 a month in covered call income from it. So, I'm not looking for massive amounts of money.
Yeah, the selling is definitely tricky, and that's actually what got me into option selling, because my portfolio is together with my dad, and he is going to retire soon, and he posed this like very legit question that he said, like, what good does it do that Palantir goes up so much if we have to sell, and then what, and yeah, with the options it's like you can keep your golden goose. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too. So so thank you so much for introducing me to degenerate option trading.
If you don't get greedy, you can definitely wipe out an entire account if you get greedy.
Yeah, luckily I made I made big mistakes, like the first trades that I have done, big mistakes, and I'm very happy that I made those mistakes on my first trades when the amounts are still low, because yeah,
but this goes to show you, when somebody gives you some sort of warning, it's not, at least when it comes to options trading, it's something you should listen to, because I think a lot of people, they get obsessed with thinking they know a good bit, when in reality they don't know what they don't know, right? And things can kind of come out of left field and really hit them and hurt them, and it's something I'm used to at this point, right? So it's kind of like being calm, rolling with the punches, but you have to be prepared to take those punches sometimes, and I think a lot of times people are not, and that's when they get themselves in a bind. So all the best to everybody in their investing journey.
Yeah,
we got Hot Dave in the chat.
Yeah, hi Dave, thanks for tuning in.
Cool. Well, you can feel free to stay on. I'm going to hit the hay because I have to get back into the office rather early tomorrow. But have a good one, man. Mitch, appreciate you reaching out. Always, I'm happy we got this one off, because for a second I thought it was going to be put on hold and eventually pushed till tomorrow or the following day. So. Me too.
I'm still nervous. It's a very complicated mission, and it's not done until the payloads are deployed. But
yeah, I'll be laying in bed in the dark, probably catching it on my phone. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Cool, guys.
Silly question. Did the 45-minute mark, was that the first payload deployment, or was that the whole mission?
No, that was just the first.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through all 3-4 parts of the movement around. But anyway.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for everyone for being here. It was an amazing launch, and special thanks to Matt Money. And yeah, see you guys on Rocket Lab Weekly, I guess. That's the next one we will meet.
See you guys soon.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Vance. I'm going to take a nap. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.